welcome to the video. Today I'm giving you my top 8 reasons why I'm hanging on to my Mavic 2 Zoom as opposed to going out and buying myself a Mavic Air 2. Not Mavic 2 Air. Does it matter? Probably not. Anyway, I'll be talking about that right after this. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell notification, as it really does help me bring you future content, or at least I hope it will. Okay, so this is not going to be a really long video. I just want to go over 8 solid reasons why you might want to keep hold of your Mavic 2 Zoom, or why you might consider maybe getting a Mavic 2 Zoom over the latest Mavic 2 Air, Mavic Air 2, whatever it is. Okay, so number 1. Weight and speed. Now, whilst it could be considered a benefit that the Mavic Air 2 is smaller and lighter and easier to carry around in your bag, come on people, let's be serious here. This is the Mavic 2 Zoom and it is tiny. I mean, it really is quite small. If you have an issue carrying this thing around in a backpack, then perhaps you've got a medical problem that needs addressing. And if you do, please don't come back on me with that. I didn't mean to cause any offence. Anyway, I digress. Digress? Digress? No. Oh, stop it. Anyway, stop it. But that being said, the Mavic 2 Zoom weighs 905 grams, has a top speed of 45 miles per hour. Whereas the Mavic Air 2 is 570 grams and a top speed of 42.5 miles per hour. I figure that this is going to deal with gusty conditions a little bit better than the Mavic Air 2, and that's why I'm seeing that as a benefit. Okay, number 2, more sensors. Right, so as you probably know, the Mavic 2 class of drone has side sensors, an infrared sensor on the top as well, whereas the Air 2 just doesn't have those sensors. It has all the other ones, and apparently they are improved a little. Why is this important to me? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I'm not afraid to use the quick shots. I'm not so proud as to not use the orbit function, for example. I can be looking at my drone, I can be concentrating on my drone as it orbits an object, and I'm not going to be so stressed out because I can see it. I'm not one of these people who will just fly in orbit, and I'm using orbit just as one example, of course, who will fly in orbit around an object just so they can say they can do it because they've got the skill. I have got the skill to do it, but I'd rather be looking at my drone and concentrating on what the drone's doing than worrying about how good is my circle. And I think that having the option of having the sensors on the side can save you. They're not perfect, you can't rely on them, but in quick shots I use them a lot. And whilst it's true that they've never ever activated for me, it's a comfort to know that they're there. The top sensor has been useful, especially when I've flown underneath trees and things. That has been useful for me, and I'm glad I've got it because I have been a little reckless over the last few weeks. Okay, number 3, the Go4 app. I love it. It gives me a lot more control than you're going to be getting out of the Mavic Air 2 in terms of being able to fine-tune the drone in flight, fine-tune the yaw movements and things like this, for example. I'm not going to spend too much time going over that. It's just that I'd rather have more control than less, and I don't like the Mavic Air 2's app. It just doesn't look very well rounded to me. It just doesn't look polished. I think that the battery indicator warning at the top of the screen, and I'm not pointing to show you on this screen, although I might actually bring it up, is a bit confusing. It's white, and if you're looking at that against a white cloudy sky, you're not going to see how much battery you've got remaining. It's little quirks like that which kind of turn me away from the Mavic Air 2. Okay, number 4, controller screen. So the little screen inside the controller of the Mavic 2 has actually saved me a few times. There have been situations where I've had to do a manual return to home when my phone has died, and I've not been able to trust it to return by itself because I know that it's been set to return at a certain height and I know it's not going to clear that height. I've had to rely on the distance indicator on the built-in display of the drone in order to guide me back, and that's happened several times. and whilst it's true that I don't use it all that often, again, it's a comfort to know that it's there, and it has saved me. Number 5, and this is a small one, and you might laugh at this, but I think it might be important. It might not be, but to me I think it could be. This is darker. It's a darker drone, and before anybody says, yeah, well, if you're flying in front of dark clouds you won't see it and you'll see the air tube because it's lighter, that may well be the case, but in my experience having a drone that's a bit darker is usually helpful. Okay, number 6, yeah, it's number 6 now, isn't it? 48 megapixel images on this are 48 megapixel images, and whilst it's not a perfect solution, it takes numerous shots, it zooms in, it takes various shots, and then it combines them all together into a single 48 megapixel image. It's no good for moving targets, that's for sure, but generally speaking I get really good results from that. And I understand, but the new sensor in the Mavic Air 2, whilst it does take 48 megapixel images, those pixels are really tiny. And it actually takes 1 megapixel and turns them into 4 sort of virtual megapixels. If I'm wrong, correct me on it. But I've seen the results, and whilst it's true but I don't own that drone and I've not taken any images with it, I've seen enough of the examples online to come to the conclusion that I'd rather have the 48 megapixel images off of this. Number 7, the controller has far more control buttons, more buttons to customize. It has several more trigger buttons. And that might not be important to you, but it is important to me because I like to have as much control as possible when I'm flying my drone. And now number 8, and this is the most important thing for me. When the Mavic 2 series first came out, the Mavic 2 Zoom was overshadowed by the Mavic 2 Pro. People saw Pro and they thought if they buy a Pro drone, then that must mean that they're going to be a pro photographer, or they have the more professional piece of equipment. What a load of nonsense. Any good photographer knows, but it's not the camera that's really important. It's the camera in here that's important, and it's knowing how to use your gear. And trust me, having that zoom camera on here has just been fantastic for me. This is my second zoom drone. So I could have bought 2 Pro drones, but I went for the zoom. I went for the zoom for a reason, actually for more than one reason, for numerous reasons, but I won't go into too much depth because this is a short video. Reason number 1, being able to alter the perspective. So being able to take a photograph and to be able to zoom in on a target and bring the background closer and also blow it out a little bit. That for me looks, from the sky, that's a fantastic kind of a look. I just love it, and it's not something we've had with consumer level drones before. You'd have to have spent a lot more money and gone up to something like an Inspire 1 or an Inspire 2 with its camera to have a zoom function. And whilst it's nowhere near as good a camera as the one on the Inspire, for £1,100, or what is it, $1,350, it's not too bad. The other thing is being able to zoom into a target without getting too close to it. So for example, for legal reasons, I'm not allowed to fly within 50 meters of a building. But with this, I can be at 50 meters distance and I can zoom in 2 times, and now it looks like I'm at 25 meters distance. Plus it's given me the benefit of compressing the background and giving me more of a dynamic shot. This is really good for avoiding obstacles. Lighthouses, castles, all kinds of different things have hidden dangers, drone traps I call them, where you'll have telephone wires coming out and electricity wires and who knows what. So it's nice to have that. And as it gets more and more restrictive to use a drone in various countries around the world, and we're being told to fly further and further away from the things we want to photograph or video, having that zoom function really does matter. So, the other thing, which you might try and do if you've got a zoom, is to zoom out and fly over a landscape, because again that will compress the mountains and the hills and things, and it will give you a lovely dynamic shot. But that's just a quick tip, that doesn't really. Anyway, let's get back on track. So those are my 8 reasons for going with the zoom. Why I would rather have the zoom than jump ship and take a sideways, or maybe a sideways and slightly backwards step for the Mavic 2 Air. So I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of unlikes for this video because people will have bought the Mavic 2 Air, and then I've just given 8 reasons why I don't particularly want it. I'd rather hold on and buy the Mavic 3. Hopefully there'll be a Mavic 3 Zoom. I'd rather wait for that than sell this and buy an Air right now, and then I can use this as a second drone. So if you already have a Mavic 2 zoom, use the zoom function. It's what the drone was designed for. Get those dynamic shots, get those dynamic photographs, those lovely cinematic video sequences that you can only really get with a zoom. And no, but you've got a drone that you can fly safely around targets. You can fly over things, you can fly around things and be at a safe distance from them and still get the shot, whereas other people won't be legally allowed to do that, potentially. And if you are thinking of buying a drone, then it really is up to you what you decide to do. Starting from scratch, if I didn't have a drone right now, I know, but I'd rather spend the extra money and buy the Zoom 2 because I like the zoom function and all the other functions that I've been speaking about. They're worth more to me than Active Track 3, which I know I will never use. Yeah, I mean, these kind of sort of add-on features, the improved sensors, I'm sure they're really good, but I'm just not going to use them, to be honest with you. I will use the zoom function on this. I will use the small screen. I will use, I'm sure, the additional speed and weight to plough my way through gusts and maybe not gales. So that's it, really. What do you think? Drop me a line below if you like. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm now at 80 subscribers. So that's a far cry from the 55 that I had a few weeks ago. Until next time, get out there and do something interesting.